Morning, everybody. We'll just start in another minute. Thank you very much for your patience. All right, it's 11:05 on the clock this Saturday morning, and allow me, on the behalf of my team at Toolbox India, to extend a very good morning to all of you. For all of you who've taken out time this Saturday morning to join us, thank you for being here. It is the first digital dialogues. I think we are in our third or fourth edition. I'm not fully. I don't.
The headphone. The headphone sound.
Ila, could you just please place everyone on mute? Thank you. It is the beginning of the new financial year. It's also the year when hopefully a lot of organizations, a lot of us are emerging from what COVID has unleashed on organizations in the last 2 years. For those of you who've been following the Digital Dialogue series, you know, in the last 2 years, we've spoken a lot about really addressing, you know, the pandemic, which caught us completely by surprise, what organizations had to prepare. We thought we were emerging from it, but we didn't last year. It's been 2 years of learning, ramping, revamping, and a bunch of these things. Through all of this, for all of us who are very, very tuned into what's been some of the things that we've been noticing, wellness, mental health has come into the center stage for a lot of organizations. 2 months from now, when I chair the founders table, we'll be listening into young founders and how they've had to deal with everything that the pandemic brought up upon for their organizations. But today, I have a very special guest. I'd like to bring in someone to have this sort of an open floor discussion on balancing wellness, accountability, and loyalty. The second act, as she calls her initiative now, Archana Datta is a seasoned corporate professional, having worked with the biggest names in hospitality, be it the Hilton Group, the Oberoi Group, and many others, Lufthansa, where she's gone on to design and strategize loyalty programs. Loyalty in the for-profit world is primarily driven to build targeted sort of consumers, you know, who stay loyal to you. You know, interestingly, one of the tips that airline staff give you is that try to book always with the same airline because you'll get onto a loyalty program. I think the whole idea for us always at Toolbox has not been to bring in whatever's working in the for-profit and directly bring it here. But there are rich learnings which come about. And I think at a time when we've seen a lot of organizations who've really had attrition, they've had co-founders, they've had board members, for whatever reasons, who used the last 2 years and sort of the external chaos as their moment of reckoning to say that, you know what, we're going to, you know, we've had enough, you know, I think it's time for me to do something else, and they've moved away. It's also left with a lot of CEOs, leadership teams, board members, co-founders. How do I move forward? And how do I build loyalty? So without much further ado, let me welcome Archana Datta. Archana, lovely to have you here. And thank you so much for being here with us today. I think beyond the audience which is tuning in today, we'd like to take this conversation much more to all our other partners who will, who will hopefully watch what we're talking about and understand where we're coming from. So on behalf of everybody here at Toolbox, I also know that a lot of my social lens co-workers are there. So very warm welcome to you. Well, let me start away by, firing the first sort of question, and let's just talk about wellness, right? I mean, across social media, across discussion forums, wellness has come into the center stage of the largest corporations to the smallest of organizations. And can you just kind of unpack that for us a little bit? What is the core of wellness that as organizations we should be focusing on? Because in the audience, there are people, and I count myself also as part of the audience. Not only am I a founder, a CEO, I also am a co-worker. What does wellness mean? Because wellness means different things to different people, but there is a unified or a common concept of what wellness should mean for all of us. Over to you, Archana.
Thank you, Vijaya. What a pleasure for me to be addressing my favorite topics, second act, because this is in my second act that I try to touch people's lives by discussions on well-being. I would say wellness is the wellness is the road and well-being is the destination. And I like to talk about well-being in a more elaborate form. And of course, loyalty, because I think loyalty is something that, I've worked on it for the last decade or so. I understand the nuances of loyal customers, loyal employees, loyal us, and we'll dwell more into it. But coming to your point of wellness, or I would elaborate as well-being, because wellness is very only like, it's like a small box of only taking care of your health. Wellness is only about your physical health. Well-being, on the other hand, has many laterals, and it starts with mental, physical, psychological, social, emotional, and spiritual, and of course, financial, which I think most of us are concerned about. So it's a long chain. Well-being is a long chain. And like you said, that everybody has a different meaning, a different format, but the ethos is what? The ethos is that we are all seeking happiness. And I think 7.9 billion people in this world, if you ask them one thing, what are you seeking? The answer is happiness, right? So right from the way we think to way we want our body to be, the way we want to think of as in a social circle, to earning money, everything we are seeking happiness by the end of it. And that's a clear definition. There is no other definition. But how we get to that is something that I think each of us has a defined roles. Some of us are able to do it in a certain way, some of us don't. But I think there's nobody in the last 2 years who's not been touched by one of the laterals. Either we have been psychologically down or mentally down or financially down, spiritually down. And then to talk about how do we lift everything up, and that's not an easy task. And in second act, we always say human beings are work in progress, and that we can never forget. I can never say, chalo bhai, हो गया, अब तो मैंने ये कर लिया, अब बस, अब तो हो गया. Even to maintain your physical health, you need to work on it every day, isn't it? I mean, you would know if there's walk, then you must walk every day. If there's yoga, if there's gym, 1 week, 2 weeks, you leave it, you know how your body forms again. So there is nothing on the whole well-being trajectory that can be left out. Now, of course, coming to the most pertinent question, how do we do it? Everybody has a story to tell. So I want to ask you, Vijaya, of course, you've been asking, what are you doing for your well-being in any of these laterals or many of these laterals, and what are you not able to do? You're on mute.
This has kind of caught me by surprise because I wasn't expecting a question to come back to me. So Archana, I think I'll answer this in part because not because I don't want to, but I also want to kind of field for a lot of the organizations we work with and what some of they've had to say. Yes, I think for me personally, it's so also again I want to kind of narrow down sort of the well-being element of it, okay, where I say that I would largely, I know you can't separate how you are with your your personal sort of thoughts and you know and how that kind of plays into what you do at work. But to the extent I'm going to kind of narrow it down to keeping it to how I've dealt with some of the, or continue to deal with some of the chaos that gets thrown at us as organization founders, leaders, and so on.
Right.
So one is, of course, I think one of the first things was to really look at taking a step back in terms of what we wanted to do with our own organizations, right? And then saying that we don't want to just do what everybody else is doing because we're going to feel we're going to get left behind. Let's do what we can and let's do it right and try to bring some sort of balance to the extent that's possible, not just for myself, but for the team as well. You want to create those pockets of space over weekends. So to the extent possible, we try and, look at how you can create a little bit of personal time. On the work front, we started bringing in a little bit more of, a casual sort of catch-ups. And I know just over a month and a half back, we had a lot of people who joined us during the lockdown, right? So everything that people were doing was just an idea in their heads. They knew they belonged to this organization. And just like you and I, we were just talking like this, whether it was weekly meetings or not. So just to all of us to come together and just to start trying to spend a little time knowing who each of us are. I think that became important. I also realized that there was nothing wrong to lean in with younger team members.
Yeah.
They can actually surprise you because you think that age brings wisdom. Age doesn't bring wisdom. Age may bring experience. But there is a certain chutzpah, there is a certain sort of bravado which only comes with the power of being at a particular age. And I think there have been a lot of sort of reverse learnings. I think some of us I was vulnerable. I think there's bravery and vulnerability where you're brave enough to be, to show your vulnerability and your concerns, because as leaders, you can't just say that I need this done, I want this done. I think we have to talk about, why we need to, whether you want to step up on something or step back on something. And I think that really is what it is. And I think everybody goes through hard days, in an organization. It's not that organizations of the size that we are at, I think everybody shares the concern, whatever we want to do. And in that, it became a lot more participatory, it became way more democratic, it became more collective. So yeah, I don't want to take up time to talk about what were the other things I do. But I think on the work front, these were some lessons, and we're constantly learning and relearning. And that's how we're moving forward, Archana.
So my idea was not to put you in a spotlight, Vijaya. My idea was that each of us were hearing this today, or dwelling more into well-being space. Everybody needs to answer that one question: what am I doing as an individual, and what am I doing as an organization? Like you said, in your personal space, you were doing something. At the same time, you were bringing something in the organization space.
Yes.
And unfortunately, what happens is that normally people disconnect their personal and the professional side. What they are in the professional space, they don't bring themselves as a whole, as their authentic self. Like you said, for leaders, it's so important to be vulnerable. And I think we are just trying to hide behind the masks. We are not even being transparent about certain things. Everybody has gone through a lot. Smaller organizations, like you said, or NGOs, or the SMEs. I think they were the worst hit because everything stopped for them for 2 years. But how many of them did really had a heart-to-heart chat? Most of them, or most of us, will not like to show that side, to say, okay, we are going through a rough side. Either we took decisions where employees felt like a victim because we said, we don't have funds, you're laid off. Or at the same time, there was something very drastic, like shutting down operations, or like, we can't do it anymore. So the thing is, I think it's very important to have, like you said, your weekly check-ins, meetings with your employees where you connect with them on a different level altogether. So they're in the trajectory, they take a decision together. So I think we need to combine our efforts together and not think alienated, that I'm not a part of the system. And I think I would define it this way.
Thank you, Archana. I just want to, kind of stay on the well-being, mental health conversation just a little bit more. Of course, we as people who are consuming a lot of content every day. Hi, Harsh. So nice to see you here.
Hello, Harsh.
Hi Vijaya. Hi, Archana.
Very pleasantly surprised to see you here, but a warm welcome to you, Harsh.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Just going back to the mental well-being conversation itself, Archana. So we've seen a lot of that come together, right? And again, the way information is also being presented, whether they're personal stories, whether they're employees who've been laid off. I don't think it's in black and white. It's not binary, right? So when people say that, I did this, I took a mental health day off, I pushed back against something, there's automatically a feeling that when somebody is asking you to do something, they're unfeeling, they're not considering this, your thoughts or the space you're in. I think I am batting a little bit for a lot of people in leadership, right? Because which will actually take me to the next part of it. In your experience and what you're seeing, is it that well-being of employees, of teams was just never being considered? Was it all as bad as it was made out to be? And if it is something that we need to address, if organizations need to address, what would be the one or two things you're going to tell the audience from a work perspective? Because all of us have faced it where somebody said, you know what, I can't do this, I'm overwhelmed, I just can't. A lot of us, I think, irrespective of whether you're a non-profit or a for-profit, first of all, I believe those lines are blurred. For me personally, I believe that without profit, philanthropy cannot exist. So it's not this world that, profit is bad and philanthropy, is good. Both are, you need both. It's just the perspective that's coming into it, right? So, and there are hard underlying realities that even for-profit people need to take care of. And so I'm just trying to understand, because I will then move into accountability. But what I just therefore want to bring up is, while we're talking about mental health, the celebration or the shouting out from the rooftop that, I've pushed back. I'm not saying it's not justified, but are we just painting one lot of leadership as completely, not being sensitive enough or not being understanding enough?
Well, Vijay, I think the companies have done a lot, and it's not about, not recognizing that fact. I'm saying that it is about not recognizing the fact that your company is doing enough. Whether it was in terms of talking to colleagues, whether it was in terms of bringing in policies which help them, whether it was even paying for their COVID shots, checking on their families, or, bringing in employee benefits like this, actually to say, hey, take 2 days off because you're not in that space. I think colleagues in the organization who are in the HR role in the policy making have really turned companies upside down in the last 2 days just to make sure that employees are in a good space. On the other hand, I also see employees still feeling like a victim. They are always comparing themselves. What is happiness? Happiness is what we seek within, but unfortunately, happiness is something because he's a happier person. So I'm seeking that happiness because I'm looking at that guy. So everybody is looking at the other organization saying, but वो कर रहे हैं, आप तो वो नहीं कर रहे हो, मुझे वो तो पूरा महीना ऑफ दे रहे हैं, but हमें नहीं कर रहे हैं. Every organization has a role to play. When I also talk to my team often that if we have signed up to be on the field, you better be on the field. Social work cannot happen remotely. It cannot happen while sitting, on your laptops. You have to be in touch with the community. You have to be in touch with people, and you have to understand what they are going through. So I think we need to understand, what have we signed up for? What is my real role in that organization? What am I actually here to bring in? Am I only here to doing a favor, or is it really that I am, whatever I have decided to do, am I giving my 100%? And I think that's mental is all about my kids also do not align with this. The younger generation is all about, no, you don't know, I need therapy. I need to consult a doctor. We totally get it. But did we have that when we were growing up? Maybe not. And I think these words were alien to us, to be honest. And I completely feel it lies in your mind. If you change the mind in 1 second, the mind thinks something completely different, while the mind comes down completely different. Not undermining the fact that a lot of people have gone through a lot of mess. And I think the companies are aligning with it. But at the same time, are we giving back? Is the big question. Am I understanding why am I here in different spaces? If there is a BPO which can manage things on, call center and phone and remote, perfectly fine. But did you sign up for that? You're not in a BPO maybe. If you are in a social sector, if you are in a sector which needs flexibility of being there on the spot, sales can't be done again on the phone. It needs relationship. So for some time when the world was closed, it was closed, but then the world is back and we need to be back on ground. How will companies manage? How will we all manage, bringing things back? And it's our own responsibility. So well-being, our mental well-being, any well-being is, companies can put policies, they can be kind, they can alter things, but at the end of it, it's my responsibility to see that I'm in good space. I can use tools, I can use techniques, I can use the infrastructure. But again, I need to understand that I need to be in good space to be able to give back.
Well, I think that's a very, very sort of a relevant point that you just brought up, right, Archana? Because I think the 2 years, if we spend the first 6 months whining about how difficult it is, we've moved away, we are now working remote, and there was one set of conversations which we're spending so much time, we're going meeting after meeting online, the lines between our home and our work life has gotten blurred. At least when we were at work, we knew we had a lunch break, we had a chai break, and at 6 or 6:30 we wound up, we went home. But here we have Zoom calls till 8 and 8:30. That was the conversation then. The conversation now is where you see a lot of reluctance, where people want to get back to the old, because somewhere along the way an inertia has kicked in, right? So the first question often will come up is, when there are meetings, clients have started asking us to come back for in-person meetings. For a lot of our nonprofit partners who are tuning into the call today, as you said, for them, field work or, getting back to the program in its entirety before whether they, I think one of the things a lot of nonprofits were doing was, of course, they stayed connected to the community in the 2 years, whether it was to COVID relief and whatever, they were running hybrid models of the program. But that was also the time when they're all getting back. And I'm sure each one is faced with a challenge around, okay, do you want me to come into work all 5 days a week? Should I be coming in 6 days? Can I come in 2 days? And I think there are a lot of people who are being very flexible, saying that, look, you come in 3 days a week, or you come in 2 days a week, or whatever, and so on. Which actually brings in me to the next sort of things that I want to talk about. How do we drive accountability? I mean, I think well-being, accountability, they're kind of sitting side by side, because ultimately, and again, I think we've had philanthropic capital providers who've been extremely patient, who've been very empathetic to organizations in the last 2 years. To the extent possible, I won't say that everybody went through funding cuts. Yes, there were organizations who went through funding cuts. There were a lot of organizations who supported, continue to support.
Right.
Harsh, I'm sorry to kind of pull you in, but Harsh represents an organization where there's CSR and there is a family foundation, and I know that uh, uh, they've continued to support their partners in whatever way, so that there was continuity and so on.
Right.
Having said that, um, accountability needs to be there, right? Because ultimately we are accountable. So how do we drive that? Because that, I think, is becoming the toughest part. For the last 2 years, even some element of key performance indicators, targets, they were all forgotten because we were all dealing with something which was so much more larger, so much more sudden. But that is over. In a way, it's over. It'll still be there in bits and pieces. And there are a lot of individuals where the pandemic has not left them untouched. It hasn't. I am very grateful for those who have, and for those who have not seen personal tragedy. But to say that it has left nobody untouched is incorrect. If nothing else, everybody's had one round of COVID. Yeah. So with all of this, how do we drive accountability to tell them that, look, now's the time. We have things to deliver. Needs to be done. Because if it doesn't get done, then comes the next conversation that we'll have to let you go, right? How does one do this? And I don't think this is just there's a human resource angle to it, but it's also a leadership challenge. It's also individual responsibility, collective accountability. And how do you kind of not say that I pick well-being over accountability? Does accountability also not form a part of your well-being? Because your well-being also should come because you are accountable to certain things in your job front. You're accountable for certain things in your personal life. You are responsible for certain things for yourself. Don't we always say that take responsibility for yourself, demonstrate responsibility to others? The first thing that we teach in a lot of socio-emotional programs for young children today.
Absolutely. I think, again, you've asked a very, very important question, accountability. And I want to actually go back to the definition of accountability. When you look up the definition of accountability, it says willingness to accept personal responsibility. So I'm willing to accept this responsibility, and that's why I've signed up. So why should somebody else hold you accountable?
Yeah.
You are accountable for this task yourself because you have signed up for it. Why should somebody pull you up to say, hey, ye deadline, even, with all, now I'm on both sides because after a corporate world, coming as an entrepreneur, it's a sea shift of my own mindset. I know how I operated in a particular atmosphere when everything was given. It was a very fancy life. Everything was given, but still there was like, oh, the company doesn't care. The company doesn't do this enough for us. At this time they're expecting us to come. How will I go back? Is the taxi organized or not? And when I come on this side of the table, I say, oh my goodness, I cannot be, more grateful than what I got in life. They do so much and more. And I think it's the best shift, these kids of today all want to be entrepreneurs. And I think nothing better than that for their grooming, to be honest. Accountability comes when you actually experience that space, when you make yourself accountable. And in both sides, unfortunately, I don't know why we miss out being accountable when we work for an organization, and we understand it better when we are on the other side. That's a gap, I feel.
I just want to pause a moment here and actually throw it open to the audience, because I think in the audience there are many organizations, and a lot of them have team members, not necessarily youngsters, even the older lot, who therefore I think the normalization, the bringing back the sort of, as we call it, accountability dialogue is getting that much tougher. Is there anybody in the audience who has a question, who has an experience which they're facing with their own organization, something that you want to bring up? It'll be good to hear from a couple of you who are out here. I did see a message from Rutuja of VOPA. Rujita, you're still here. Are you still here? I'm not sure. Just... Yeah, so Rujita, I can see you on in the audience group. Is there something that you would like to elaborate? We don't find anybody else. This is intended to be a two-way conversation and not just Archana and me on a sort of just a dialogue with ourselves. The dialogue is with all of you.
Right.
So I do want to hear from the audience as well. Anybody who would like to go? Okay. Since we don't have anybody who really wants to voice anything. So, so what can one do to drive this better then? What can one do?
Yeah.
Practically?
So when I actually introspect a bit that why was I a different person and why am I a different person today? Why accountability, I feel should be something that should happen automatically and we should not hold people responsible because I've signed up for it. Why was that missing from me when I was on the other side? And I feel sometimes organizations miss out on creating that trajectory for a person, empower people in a certain way that they become like a stakeholder. They become like a person who has the same amount of passion. We are not dictating terms, but we have a buy-in. So what I do differently now is that I discuss any new project that comes. I have a team meet. I ask everybody, so what is the thing that you would like to take from here? What is the thing that you will be able to do best? And what do you think, if this is the project scope of timelines, what is the best timeline to decide that can be delivered? So I think when they have a certain buy-in, and then they also know that they are the responsible people behind the entire thing, and they are then signing up for accountability, I think it's easier to get deliveries, and also, the expectation of the project is met much more, rather than I deciding saying, hey guys, we have a project, 6 months delivery time, you do this and you do that, and we need to do this, so that we can all bring it together. I think that is probably a one-way dialogue. And that's mostly what happens in an organization in a role. There are defined KRAs, which is very process-driven. So it seems like you're working for somebody rather than working together in an atmosphere.
So I'm going to look at this a little bit differently, because I think this works in, this one, it works where, so one of the things at least I felt or I've seen also, is that democratizing certain things doesn't necessarily drive that accountability. Ideally, it should. It also comes from a certain learning curve of each individual. And again, the way you're personally wired, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
There are some people who just will work better if they've been told that, look, this is the timeline, this is what we have to do. Also, in the non-profit world, not everybody has the luxury to say that, we will do it in this time that we think best.
No. I think you got it wrong. What I meant was that when they say, okay, I think the content for this piece, supposing, needs to be delivered within 1 week, let me deliver in three days, so that there is a time to review it. Then we know that the client needs to review it. So I need to do this in 3 days. But the buy-in for, of course, the person who's leading the project has to have a complete buy-in. What I meant was that when you include the team in your the first startup, when you literally have the first project startup, when there are things that you decide as a team, they know the fire behind it, they know the kind of stress it can create if it is not done in time, and also that what does each role comply of. You need to have smart goals, you have to have deadlines, you have to have policies behind it. So the process needs to be formed, but they need to be included in the process, is what I meant right from the beginning.
Okay. Let me just ask you this. You also touched upon, they need to see the passion, they need to feel the passion. Again, I think personally, if you ask me, I'm willing to sacrifice passion in teams as long as, the understanding of why they're here and why they have to do why doing something or fulfilling whatever the intended responsibility they've been given to do is undertaken. So that's what I want to ask you. Everybody feels passionate. You just feel passionate about different things.
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest things is that team members don't need to feel the passion that founders have, right? Because the very fact that what you want is consistent and repeated commitment to whatever you're doing, which is how, for me, it's how I look at loyalty. But I'll just steer off from the loyalty conversation just for a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. So in dealing with all that we're dealing with today, where we're saying that somebody's well-being comes to the forefront, we're saying that accountability has to be something that they recognize for themselves from within, saying that it is, I am responsible for this, so I'm going to get it done. Do we still need passion?
So what I again meant with passion was that, the team is divided into different talents that they bring to the table, right? Somebody could be good at going in the field or selling something. Somebody could be good at marketing. Somebody could be doing just, the back office stuff, preparing for the meeting, doing presentation. So the passion of each one of what they are bringing to the table needs to be that platform where during the weekly meetings or during the bi-weekly meetings, whatever you guys, or we decide, that passion needs to come out, that they have put their 100% into that work that they are doing. It is not aligning with your bigger goal maybe, but it's aligning with the goal that they have signed up for. And that's, otherwise, why are they even there in that role? A marketing person having something like in content writing might not be, maybe a person in social media might not be a content writer. Maybe the person is only focused on कि इसमें कैसे मैं engagement बढ़ाऊं, मैं इसके कैसे numbers बढ़ाऊं, मैं क्या मतलब जो लिख रहा है वो कैसे आगे लेके जाऊं. So that person has a passion to drive people into your platform. So is that passion coming together or not? Is that coming together to other colleagues or not? Are we discussing and celebrating those little passionate moments, little passionate things within the team, so that the team is becoming cohesive? It is not aligning. So of course, there is a bigger motive behind it. They have all bought into that meeting to say, hey, this is the bigger trajectory. What is each one of us doing? But whatever I'm doing, am I passionate about it or not? Because unless I am, it will never be 100% delivery that I will bring in. And then this will bring the whole project down. So that's what I meant by passion.
Okay.
We have someone in the audience who has raised hand.
Okay.
Jayaprakashi, if you could unmute yourself up.
Whoever's speaking, please unmute yourself, switch on your camera so that we can see you, and you can either ask your question or you have something to share. Who is it?
It's Mr. Jayaprakash.
Yes, Mr. Jayaprakash, go ahead.
I think it must be a network issue or something.
A network issue, or he's probably raised his hand by error. I'm not sure. Okay. All right. Yeah. So Archana, coming down to, what I'm therefore taking away from you here is that, people bring a certain amount of, uh, personal passion. Let me just call it that. They're passionate about some things. They bring their certain skills where they're good at one thing. And, the whole idea is therefore you kind of mesh all this together so that it kind of folds into the larger goal.
Yeah.
Point taken. But I do know that for a lot of organizations to just, I think the spaces to engage in using only those skills that you are good at on the majority of your job is also a sort of a utopian concept for many of us. If I were to take my own organizations, I know on my team I have somebody who is very, very driven by sustainability. They all know whom I'm talking about, so they know who they are. She's very passionate about sustainability, and tries to bring in sort of sustainability element into everyday things that she does. On the work front, her role is something very different. Then there's somebody else who's very driven by, what feminism means and all of that. In fact, I've even been asked saying that, can we work with more organizations which have feminist agendas?
Right.
I don't think we're saying no to any of it, but I think even with skills, even with passions, workplaces don't necessarily always directly on the job front allow you to kind of bring that into play. Sometimes skills just get discovered by accident in people, Archana, and those are wonderful surprises to have. So for those of you who are listening in, I would encourage each of you to expose your co-workers to a new project, a new thing that they're required to do. You will have them turn around and say that, well, I've never done it before, but there's always a first time. And there are only two outcomes that could come out. Either you know that you just are terrible at it, or it might just surprise everybody, including the person, that, hey, I could do this. So point taken, Archana. I definitely will take that with me. But I'd also I like the idea of the cohesiveness, right? And so you want to foster spaces in organizations where there are conversations that one can have, which bring your interest, which you share with a larger group. Now, whether you want to do that through an open lunch and say, you know what, while we are otherwise gossiping about what we watched on Netflix or what we heard in the news, let's just reserve one lunch hour every 15 days so that by turns you have people talking about something that's very interesting. So, people get to hear that, or beyond work, you do something. I hear you. Because I think the final piece of today's conversation, which I think I want to touch upon and bring about, is really around loyalty. What does loyalty mean? Traditionally, we've always looked at loyalty as the duration of time that a person has spent in an organization, right? Oh, they've been so loyal, they've been here for 20 years. We celebrate that, rightfully so. I look at loyalty where people, irrespective of the time that that was defined in their tenure, while they were there, they added value every day to what they did and to themselves. It's something that we need to learn, because the workforce of today are not the 40-year-olds. The workforce of today are the 22, 23-year-olds who are looking at purpose, who are looking at multitasking, and who want to make it count, even selfishly, so if for themselves, which is absolutely fine, but in the process, they will deliver for your organization. And so how do organizations navigate this? We have to start looking at the new workforce, which is the emerging workforce of today, because they are the future.
Right. So I actually feel that, like you said, the definition of loyalty was different. I worked with Lufthansa for 20 years, and I thought that, loyalty begins and ends there. In today's world, loyalty is definitely something which is even going beyond when they are there with you, because the workforce will change pretty quickly. I see it in my own kids. When they work for an organization, they're really 100%. Also, the kids who have joined me in second act, even when they joined me, they worked 100%. And even if they're not with me today, in case they have joined somewhere else, they are still pegging back at me saying, hey, look at this article, this might interest you. Ma'am, just go to the social media, you will find a lead here. Somebody just recommended, what Second Act does on another platform. These kids are so well connected. And I feel loyalty is taking it beyond even when they're working with you directly or indirectly. And I think that is what loyalty is. So rather than thinking, oh my goodness, why this person is not sticking with me, I think they have so much talent and there is so much nurturing that they themselves need to enhance their talent, because they have an open world which is giving them so many opportunities. As long as they think well of you, they are still wanting something to grow within your organization or a personal relationship with you, which they still want to nurture. They still see you as a mentor. They still hold the organization high esteem. I think loyalty is that. Loyalty is what you, so let's think about ingredients of loyalty. What is it? Trust. It is like affection. It is taking responsibility. It is like a give back. There are so many things in loyalty. It's not a one-way process. Loyalty is always a two-way process. And I just feel that what you give, what you get in return. If the why meets, like you said, the purpose meets, that purpose of alignment, purpose of that care, purpose of like coming together, I think loyalty is nothing but that. And I think we should be glad if, like you said, there's so much to learn from the generations today. I think we should give that to them to say, yeah, go explore yourself, be with us as much as you can bring that value to us. At the same time, hold your values tight. Are you
Yeah.
holding your values tight? And I think that is very important.
I think that's a great point that you brought up, when you said that those who stay connected to you, even though they're no longer part of what you do anymore. And I think that's been something that's been very, very tangible for both our organizations here. And I am grateful for whatever it takes for my coworkers and I to create those spaces and bring in those values, because I think loyalty, as you rightfully mentioned, also goes, the biggest metric is how connected they stay to you and the cause, because it is the cause that brought them here in the first place. So for all of you who are listening into this, people will move for different reasons, right? And that's a fact of life. That's a fact of professional, of running organizations as well. People will come, people will move on. But in that process, you want to foster a group of professionals who continue to champion for your organization long after they have formally left your organization. And again, while they are there, they are delivering their best. And that is a separate conversation. What does it take to drive productivity and so on? But I think that I think is the way we all should start looking at loyalty, Archana, in today's world. And I think for all of us who are 40 and beyond, we need to shed the way we looked at loyalty and what loyalty meant when we started working out to what loyalty today is all about. Great takeaway for that. So Archana, we just have a few more minutes. I do want to throw open in case anybody has any questions, any comments. Please don't force me to call out names to say anything. I do would like very much if Harsh is there here. Harsh, anything that you would like to say, to speak, to comment, to question? Or he's dropped off. Anybody else? So this is the quietest audience.
Yes, yes, madam. Good morning, Kamalakanan, madam. St. Thomas Church in Tamil Nadu, Hero district. Really very happy to both our discussion, very useful for us. We are last month only we are celebrating the 25th year celebration, and now I understand the loyalty because this is the first time I heard about the news because loyalty means my mind is some other somebody is getting money per monthly like that. But now you are explained that loyalty is our staff because our in our organization more than 20 years with me 20 years, 20 years, 15 years, 11 years. Most of them staff is with me. So now I understand your now very useful for me. This is my loyalty for this. Thank
Rama
you.
Nandri sir, Kamala,
Kannan.
I think what you're saying is very right. I firstly congratulate you for, celebrating firstly your 25th anniversary of your organization,
Yes,
and to
thank
have
you.
had so many people with you for so long.
Yes.
That also reflects what you have done to motivate people to stay with your organization, support the communities and your program that you're working with. So, Adhikaha, congratulations to you. And I hope you go on to celebrate the Golden Jubilee also for your organization. Okay.
Okay, thank you for the success, madam. Thank you. We are doing that.
Best wishes for
Okay.
you. எங்க ஈரோட்லயா நீங்க?
ஆமா மேடம், ஈரோடு பெருந்துறை, ஈரோடு மேடம், நியர் பை திருப்பூர் சிட்டி.
திருப்பூர் கிட்டயா? What is your
தமிழ் நல்லா
program
பேசுறீங்க.
about?
We are empower the women, madam. Very skill training. We are tied with the government and CSR. We are tied with Tata Motor also, and
Oh, very good.
and Coastal Lines. They are supporting our organization. We are
Tata Motors the driver program.
டிரைவர் ப்ரோக்ராம் பண்ணல, பட் யூத்ல இந்த ஆட்டோமொபைல்ஸ் ட்ரைனிங் மேடம். இது என்ன
Okay.
மெக்கானிக்
Auto parts training. சரி.
ஆட்டோமொபைல் ட்ரைனிங். பிகாஸ் வி ஆர் த ரன்னிங் த ஐடிஐ, அன்னை ஐடிஐன்னு ஒரு ஐடிஐ வச்சிருக்கோம்.
Okay.
அதனால நாங்க இயர்லி 25 ஸ்டூடெண்ட் டாப் அவுட் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் செலக்ட் பண்ணி அவங்க மூலம் ட்ரைனிங் கொடுத்து பிளேஸ்மெண்ட் கொடுத்துட்டு இருக்கோம். லாஸ்ட் ஒரு
Very
5
good.
இயர்ஸா பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். அதே மாதிரி கோஸ்டல் லைன்ஸ்ல வந்து உமன் எம்பவர்மெண்ட்டுக்காக கேரியர் டெவலப்மெண்ட் ப்ரோக்ராம் நடத்திட்டு இருக்கோம். அது வந்து அசெஞ்சர் மூலம் அவங்க சப்போர்ட் பண்றாங்க.
Okay. Very good, sir. கேக்குறது ரொம்ப 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 I'm very happy to hear that. என்னோட தமிழ் அவ்வளவு நன்னா இல்ல.
நல்லா பேசுறீங்க, எங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருக்குது. ஏன்னா டூல்ஸ் பாக்ஸ் கூட எங்களுக்கு நிறைய ஹெல்ப் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. நிறைய நாங்க அக்கவுண்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் டெவலப் பண்றதுக்குலாம் எங்களுக்கு லாஸ்ட் ஒரு 1 month பண்ணாங்க.
Very happy to hear. இப்ப டூல் பாக்ஸ்ல வந்து எல்லா புது டீம் இருக்கா. I'll just introduce very quickly the team as well. But first of all, I would like all of you to join me in firstly thanking Archana for a wonderful power-packed 50-minute conversation, Archana. I do hope to keep the conversation going. I believe that decoding loyalty in the months to come, how can we kind of build a loyal team of supporters and friends of any organization? Because the minute we think of loyalty, we only think of employees, we only think of funders. We have to go beyond that. And how can loyalty be leveraged? I think that will be the next conversation that I would like to bring about. So thank you very much, Ashna, for joining us today. For all of you in the audience who are there, I would also like to place before you that Toolbox has 2 new members. I would just like for all the 3 members to switch on their cameras. I'd like to introduce firstly Ela. Many of you have already been in touch with Ela in the last 1 year. Ela, who looks at the programs, she and Gautam Nair are very much in contact with you, whether it is digital dialogue, whether it's part of our projects. So you have Ela and Gautam. And I would also like to introduce Shashwat, who is leading communications and a lot of the new initiatives that we're rolling out with. All 3 of them will be in contact with all of you in the coming days. We're very happy to introduce the Value Pass program. Emails would have already been commencing about it, but there are exciting offerings which talk about how do you, sharpen your fundraising pitches? How do you bring together better website visibility and the leadership coaching circle, which is coming up. This is the new program that we're introducing 10 years since Toolbox set up its operations in India. So I do hope to see all of you joining us at the Value Pass program. And the team will be running query windows. You can log in, you can ask your questions, you can understand what the program is all about and how you can be a part of that program. But for now, it is almost 12 noon and we are right on time. Wishing you all a wonderful weekend and stay tuned for next Saturday's session at Digital Dialogues with Swati Mathur. Till then, thank you all. Have a lovely day. And thank you once again, Archana, to keep more conversations going at Digital Dialogues and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Great having me.